All right, chapter 3 study guide. We do have a test coming up. Let me tell you when that's going to be. First period, your test is going to be on October 29th. October 29th is going to be Thursday. Let's see here. Second period, your test is going to be October 30th for second period. Day before Halloween. Spooky. All right, here we go. Section 3.2, solving equations with addition and subtraction. Solve for each variable. You must show inverse operations to receive full credit. Here we have x minus 15 equals negative 22. What is the inverse of subtracting 22? I'm sorry, back up. So inverse of subtracting 15 is adding 15. So we add 15 to both sides. What is negative 15 plus 15? It's 0, right? So we're left with just x equals negative 22 plus 15. Which number is further from 0? Negative 22 is further from 0. So we know this sum is going to be negative. How far is 22 from 15? How far apart are these two numbers? They're 7 apart. 22 and 15 are 7 apart. So x equals negative 7. X equals negative 7 there. Solve for each variable. You must show inverse operations to receive full credit. We did that. Okay, on number 2 here, x minus negative 8. When we're subtracting a negative, we do have to add. So x plus 8. We should rewrite that as x plus 8. All right, now what is the inverse of adding 8? Subtracting 8. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. X equals 12 minus 8, which gives us 4. Notice the way my work is structured. Notice I'm showing the inverse operations on both sides. Most of y'all have done very well to show the inverse operations on both sides, but we do have a couple students who were not showing all the supporting work they need to show. Number 3. X plus negative 12 equals negative 93. Now remember, we want this negative 12 to be 0. So what's the inverse of adding negative 12? It's going to be adding 12. Or you could say what's the inverse of negative 12 is positive 12. So we add 12 to both sides of our equation, and we get x equals, well, negative 12 plus 12 is 0. That's canceling out. Negative 93 plus 12. Which number is further from 0? Negative 93 is further from 0. So this sum is going to be negative. And then how far is 93 from 12? In other words, what's 93 minus 12? It's going to be 81, right? So x equals negative 81. Next one, 4. Negative 6 plus y. What's the inverse of negative 6? In other words, how can we make this 0? The inverse of negative 6 is adding 6. So plus 6 and plus 6. And we get y equals 117 plus 6 is 123. By the way, we can check any of these solutions by plugging them into the original equation. I'll do it on this one just so you can see. Negative 6 plus 123, is that equal to 117? And yes, it is. So you can do this on every problem, and on your test, if you have time, you probably will, you should do this before you turn your test in just to make sure everything checks out the way it should. Number 5, 28 equals x plus 41. What's the inverse of adding 41? That is subtracting 41, so minus 41. Okay. Now remember, we can always write subtraction as addition, so this is the same thing as 28 plus negative 41. You don't have to do this, but you might want to think about it this way. So which number is further from 0? Negative 41 is. So we know that sum's going to be negative. How far is 28 from 41? In other words, what's 41 minus 28? You get 13. So x equals negative 13. X equals negative 13 on number 5. Number 6. 81 plus q equals negative 39. Okay, we want this, we want the q to be isolated, which means we need to get rid of the 81. We want to make 81 equal to 0. So what's the inverse of positive 81? The inverse of positive 81 is negative 81 or minus 81. So we subtract 81 from both sides. 81 minus 81 is 0. We're left with just q is equal to, okay, negative 39 minus 81. This is like negative 39 plus negative 81. Now remember, this is just like 39 plus 81, except for it's going to have the exact opposite sign. So what's 39 plus 81? Well, 9 plus 1 is 10, right? So 9 plus 81 is 90. 90 plus 30 is, that's 120, which means negative 39 plus negative 81 is negative 120. So Q is equal to negative 120. There we go. Number 7, define a variable, write an equation, and solve. The sum of a number and 49 is 165. So sum means we're going to be adding a number, we'll call it x, and 49 means equals, right? 165. So x is going to represent a number. Nothing fancy here, just x represents a number. Don't do this when it represents something more than a number, like if it represents like the number of, I don't know, pizzas you're buying, the number of books you have read in the summer, whatever. Sometimes it represents more than a number, but in this case it just represents a number. So the sum of a number, so that means x plus and 49, the sum of x and 49 is 165. So define a variable, we did that, x is a number. Write an equation, we did that, x plus 49 equals 165, and solve. We're trying to isolate x, which means we have to get rid of this plus 49. So the inverse of adding 49 is subtracting 49. So we subtract 49 from both sides. All right, so let's see here. We could do this the old school way, or we could try to do it mentally. So if we were to subtract 50 here, 65 minus 50 is 15, right? We're not quite subtracting that much. We're one short of subtracting that much. So it's 16. 65 minus 49 is 16. So it's going to be 116 there. Okay. All right. Very good. Next one. The difference, that means we're going to subtract of a number. I'll use y this time. And 39 is, that means equals negative 41. What is the number? So the difference of a number, y, and 36, so y minus 36 is negative 41. What is the number? What's the inverse of subtracting 36? It's going to be adding 36. So we add 36 to both sides, and we get y equals negative 41 plus 36 gives us negative 5. Oh, I messed up. How did I mess up? Did you catch my mistake? We didn't define a variable. So what does y represent? On this one, again, it just represents a number. Usually that's not going to be the case, but it is the case here. As we work our way through this review guide, you're going to see that your variables represent more than just a number. Oh, and here's one example of it here, number 9. Jill collects 12 ladybugs for her science project. This is 9 fewer than the number of ladybugs that she collected yesterday. How many ladybugs did she collect yesterday? Okay, so the first thing we ask ourselves is, what do we not know? What are we trying to find? How many ladybugs Jill collected yesterday? So we'll say, let's see, I'll put B for bugs. The number, be specific, number of what? Ladybugs. But that's not good enough. We could be more specific than that. Number of ladybugs Jill collected yesterday. Okay. All right. Now on a problem like this, ask yourself, did she collect more ladybugs today or more ladybugs yesterday? So Jill collects 12 ladybugs for her science project. This is 9 fewer than the number of ladybugs she collected yesterday. So the number she collected yesterday was more. How much more? 9 more. So there's two ways. You could say 12 plus 9 equals the number she collected yesterday. Or, that would work. Or you could say the number she collected yesterday minus 9 equals the number she collected today, 12. Or there's a third way I can think of. B minus 12 equals 9. Any of these will work. However you solve this equation, whether you add 9 to both sides like you would right here, right? You add 9 to both sides, B equals 21. You add 12 to both sides here, B equals 21. Or you could just do 12 plus 9 equals B. Either way, you get B equals 21. And if you wanted to use a sentence to answer this, you would say, Jill collected 21 ladybugs yesterday. Section 3.3. Solving equations with multiplication and division. Solve for each variable. Show inverse operations for full credit. 10, negative 6x equals 42. What is the operation between the x and the negative 6? That is multiplication. The inverse of multiplication is division. So we divide by negative 6 on both sides. X is equal to negative 7. X is equal to negative 7 on that one, right? Positive 42 divided by negative 6 is negative 7. Number 8, okay, let's not squeeze in too tight a space here. We got plenty of room to work, so let's rewrite this. What's happening between the n and the 7? What operation is this? Division. What's the inverse of division? Multiplication. So we multiply by 7 on both sides. Let's see here, 7 multiplied by 8, that is 56. And 7 divided by 7 is 1. So 1 times n is just n. Now, what I don't want to see is this. Do not, if you're in the habit of doing this, don't do that. It looks like you're multiplying the denominators together. That's not what we're doing. What we have to get is 7 over 7, right? So we need the 7. It could be off to the side like that. That's okay. Or it could be up in the numerator like that. Just don't put it down in the denominator. And I see it time and time again. Please just don't put that 7 right here down in the denominator. We need to get 7 over 7, which is going to give us 1, leaving the n isolated. So there you go. Remember, with inverse operations, you got to show it on both sides. So if you're not showing the inverse operations on both sides, to get full credit, you need to do that. Number 12, negative x equals negative 7. There's a couple ways to think about this. One way is the opposite of x is equal to negative 7. Therefore, x has to equal 7. Or the other way, like to show the mathematical support, what is the coefficient of x here? In other words, what number is in front of x? That's not just negative, that's negative 1. So if we divide by the inverse, we divide by negative 1 on both sides, negative x divided by negative 1 is going to be positive x. Negative 7 divided by negative 1 is going to give us positive 7. Either way, you get positive 7 for x. Number 13, negative 3x equals 81. What is happening between the x and the negative 3 here? What operation? That is multiplication. The inverse of multiplication is division. So we divide by negative 3 on both sides, and we get x is equal to negative. This is 27, I believe. Let's double check. 3 goes into 81. That'd be 2 times. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. We subtract it, we get 2. Bring down the 1. 3 goes into 21 at 7 times. So x equals negative 27. Number 14, define a variable, write an equation and solve the product. That means we're going to be multiplying, right? Let me put a dot so you don't confuse it with the variable x. We're going to be multiplying the product of a number, so I'll say x for, I'll do y for a number. And 4 is, so equals 300, find the number. Well, we're going to say y equals a number. The product of a number and 4, that's going to be y times 4, or 4 times y, is 300. What's happening between the y and the 4? Multiplication. What's the inverse of multiplication? It's division. So we divide by 4 on both sides. 4 goes outside, 300 goes underneath. 4 goes into 37 times. 4 times 7 is 28. We subtract. 30 minus 28 is 2. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 25 times. So y has to equal 75. Okay. Central Park rents paddle boats for $18 per hour. You spent $72 renting a boat. How many hours did you rent the boat? All right. Do not say X is a number here. It represents more than just a number. What does it represent? In other words, what are you being asked to find? What do we not know? What does the question say? Look for the question mark. How many hours did you rent the boat? So X is the number of hours the boat was rented. Do not just say X equals the boat or X equals hours. It represents more than that. It represents the number of hours the boat was rented. All right, so X is the number of hours the boat was rented. And if you rent it for $18 per hour, 18 for the first hour, 36 after 2, etc. So 18 multiplied by X, you spend a total of $72 renting the boat. 18 multiplied by the number of hours equals 72. So we go to solve this and we perform the inverse operation, multiplication, which is division. So we divide both sides by 18. All right, so 18 times 1 is 18, right? 18 times 2, let me do it this way. 18 times 1 is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. 18 multiplied by 3 is going to be 54. 18 multiplied by 4 is going to be 72. Ding, 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 ding. So X equals 72. If you were asked, no, not 72. X equals 4. 72 divided by 18 is 4, right? So X equals 4. You rented the boat for 8 hours. So if you were asked to write this in a sentence, the boat was rented for 8 hours. 3.6, solving inequalities by adding and subtracting. This is just like solving equations, but now we do have to graph the solution on a number line and report the interval notation. K plus 4 is greater than 6. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and we get K is greater than 6 minus 4 is 2. There you go. So on the number line then, everything centers around 2. So that's going to be 3, 4, 1, 0. Open or close circle at 2. Open circle. K is greater than 2. Do I shade left or right? I shade to the right. Remember, we want this variable on the left side. It's already on the left side of the inequality. If it wasn't, we would need to shift it around and flip that sign so it is on the left side. For interval notation, we start with that comma. We shade to the right, meaning the high end is infinity, goes to the right forever. Infinity always gets a comma. What's the low end? How far to the left does this go? Goes to 2, and that's where it stops. Open or close parenthesis? Open. So, I'm sorry, I should say bracket or parenthesis. It's an open circle, so it gets a parenthesis. If it were a bracket, or if it were a closed circle, we get a bracket. 17. H minus 19 is less than or equal to a negative 7. What's the inverse of subtracting 19? Adding 19 plus 19. H is less than or equal to negative 7 plus 19. That's going to be 12. So H is less than or equal to 12. Okay, everything centers around 12, 13, 14, 11, 10. All right, at 12, open or close circle? Close circle. Do I shade left or right? Our variable's on the left side, which is nice. We don't have to rearrange this. But do I shade left or right? H is less than or equal to 12, so I have to shade left. Okay. Interval notation, start with the comma. If we're shading left, the low end is negative infinity. Infinity always gets a parenthesis. And the high end, how far to the right does this go? It goes to 12. And 12 gets a bracket. There you go. So there's your interval notation and your graph. 51, or 18. 51 is greater than, 51 is greater than, this is q minus -3, which is going to become q plus 3. We want to rewrite that using addition. What's the inverse of adding 3? It's subtracting 3, minus 3, minus 3. So we end up with 48 is greater than q. Now, this is different because on the previous two, the variable is on the left-hand side. K is greater than 2. H is less than or equal to 12. Here we have 48 is greater than q. We're going to flip this around, q and 48. Now, if I flip this around, I need to flip my sign as well. So now we have q is less than 48. There we go. I would take 48 is greater than q. That is technically correct, but it's just so much more difficult to graph this. You're probably going to lose points on the graph because you're probably going to make a mistake. 48 is what the center's around, 49 and 50, 47 and 46. Open or a closed circle at 48. Open circle. Do we shade left or right? Q is less than 48, so we shade left. Less than 48, we're shading to the left. Interval notation, start with the comma. 48, well, let's do it this way. We're shading to the left. So if we're shading left, the low end has to be negative infinity. That gets a parenthesis. And the high end is 48. There you go. Number 19. What value is a solution to y plus 7 is greater than or equal to 12, but not a solution to y plus 7 is greater than 12? Okay, what difference do you see? Y is here, both on the left side. 7 is here, 7 is here, both on the left side. Greater than or equal to, just greater than. So the sign is facing the same way, but this one is greater than or equal to, and this one is just greater than. And on the right side, 12 and 12. So let's solve it for both of these, and let's see. We subtract 7, and we get y is greater than or equal to 5. We subtract 7, and we get y is greater than 5. Okay. Let's think about this. 10. If y equals 10, is this true? 10 is greater than or equal to 5. 10 is greater than 5. Are both these true? Yeah. How about 6? 6 is greater than or equal to 5. Is that true? Yes. 6 is greater than 5. Is that true? Yes. How about 4? 4 is greater than or equal to 5. Not true. How about this? 4 is greater than 5. Not true. There's one value that is true for one of these, but not true for the other, and that's when y equals 5. So when y equals 5, we get 5 is greater than or equal to 5, and that's true because 5 is equal to 5. But when we plug into the other one, y is greater than 5. 5 is greater than 5. That is not true. So what is a solution to y plus 7 is greater than or equal to 12, but not y plus 7 is greater than 12? Y equals 5 is the solution to y is greater than or equal to 5, but it's not a solution to y is greater than 5. 37. Solving inequalities by multiplication and division. Be careful on these. When you divide or multiply by a negative on both sides, we have to flip the sign. Solve each inequality, show the inverse operations, graph the solution on a number line, and report the interval notation. Here we go. Number 20, I can tell right away I'm going to be dividing by a negative. So let's do this. Negative 2x, we divide by negative 2. 122, we divide by negative 2. The step at which you divide by a negative, that is the step where that sign needs to flip. We talked about why that was in class the other day. I gave you examples of why you needed to flip it there. 122 divided by negative 2. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. 122 divided by 2 is 61. So x is greater than 61. Negative 61, I should say. Let's go to our number line. Everything centers around negative 61. That's negative 60. That's negative 59. That's negative 62. That's negative 63. Open or closed circle at negative 61. Open circle. X is greater than, so we shade to the right. Boom. There you go. Interval notation. Comma, If we shade to the right, the high end is infinity. That always gets a comma. I'm sorry, a parenthesis. The low end is negative 61. That is an open circle, so it gets a parenthesis as well. 21, I'm going to be dividing by a positive, so I don't have to worry about flipping my sign here. Oh, Mr. Rivers, there's a negative sign on the right side. That's okay. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm dividing by positive 3. So we get y is greater than, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Negative 26. If you don't believe me, you can do the long division. You will come out to get negative 26. Okay, so here we have negative 26, negative 25, negative 24, negative 27, negative 28. Open or close circle at negative 26. Open circle at negative 26. Do we shade to the left or to the right? We shade to the right. If y is greater than, we shade to the right. Comma. If we're shading to the right, the high end is infinity. Infinity always gets a parenthesis. The low end is negative 26. And it's an open circle, so we have a parenthesis as well. On to 22. Okay, 22, I notice I've got a negative in front of the r. Now, it doesn't matter if the negative's in front of the r or out front or down with the 4. One negative is one negative, right? Let's recopy this because, and let's not include our sign because we're going to be flipping that sign. I'm solving for r, right? So I want r to be positive. So if I want the right side to be positive, what's the inverse of division? It's multiplication, right? And if I want this to be a positive r on the right side, I need to multiply by negative 4. What is a negative multiplied by a negative? A positive. What is 4 divided by 4? 1. I'm going to multiply by negative 4 on the right side as well. When I multiply by a negative on both sides of an inequality, what do I have to do to my sign? I have to flip it. So there you go. So a negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 15 is 60. So we get 60 is less than or equal to a negative times a negative is a positive. 4 over 4 is 1. We're left with just r. Now, in this inequality, we have r on the right side. We want r to be on the left side. So we're going to flip this, r and 60. And when we flip that, we have to also flip our sign. So r is greater than or equal to 60. There you go. On the number line here, 60, 61, 62, 59, 58. Open or close circle at 60. Close circle at 60. Do we shade left or right? Shade to the right at 60. There you go. All right. Interval notation, start with the comma. If we're shading to the right, the high end is infinity. Infinity always gets a parenthesis. The low end is 60. It's a closed circle, so we have a bracket or parenthesis. Bracket. Number 23. P divided by 12 is greater than or equal to a negative 14. All right, well, let's not squeeze that in there. Let's rewrite it. The inverse of dividing by 12 is multiplying by 12. No flipping the sign on this one because we're multiplying by a positive number. Again, Mr. Rivers, there's a negative number on the right side. Don't we need to flip it? No, 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 no. What are we doing? We are multiplying by a positive number, so we don't flip the sign. 12 divided by 12 is 1. We're left with just P. It's greater than or equal to. All right, there's a couple ways to do this. We could do it mentally. We can write it out. Whatever you want to do. Here's the way I'm going to do it. You ready? A negative times a positive is a negative. All right. What is 14 multiplied by 10? 14 times 10. 140, right? And we've got 2 left over. 14 times 2 is 28. So we said 140 and 28. You add those two together. 140 plus 28 is 168. P is greater than or equal to negative 168. Let's put this on a graph. Negative 168, 167, negative 166, negative 169, negative 170. Okay, open or closed circle at negative 168. Closed circle at negative 168. P is greater than or equal to, so we shade to the right. Greater than or equal to negative 168. Interval notation now, comma. We shade to the right, so the high end is infinity. I guess in a parenthesis. The low end is negative 168. That gets a bracket because we have a closed circle. There you go. Number 24. Okay, let's take this one step at a time with number 24. First, let's move this negative 9 over. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. Plus 9 and plus 9. Negative 4 plus 9 is 5. 5 is greater than negative x. Okay. Remember earlier where we said what's the coefficient of negative x? It's going to be negative 1, right? So we're going to take our 5. We're going to take our negative x, and we're going to divide by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. Notice we're dividing by a negative on both sides. When we do that, we have to flip our sign. 5 divided by negative 1 is negative 5. Is less than negative x divided by negative 1 is going to be positive x. I would take this, but let's flip it around so that, I'm going to change color so we don't bleed into the other one. Let's flip it around so we have x on the left, negative 5 on the right. If I do that, what do I have to do to my sign? I have to flip my sign right along with it. X is greater than negative 5. On the number line, we have negative 5. That's negative 4, negative 3, negative 6, negative 7. X is greater than negative 5. That is an open circle at negative 5. X is greater than negative 5. We shade to the right. There you go. Okay. Interval notation. If we're shading to the right, the high end is infinity. That gets a parenthesis. Open circle at negative 5, so negative 5 is on the left. And that gets a parenthesis as well. Section 3.8, equation and inequality word problems. Define a variable. Write an equation or inequality accordingly. So it's going to be one or the other. Don't write an equation when it should be an inequality and vice versa. And also solve. Remember units in your answer. The price of TVA is $583. It cost $143 less than TVB. What's the price of TVB? Okay, do we know exactly what, like, are we able to calculate exactly what TVB costs, or is there going to be a range, you think? It says here, if it costs $143 less. We do know exactly what TVB is going to cost. We got to calculate it though. So what do we not know? We'll say B is the price of TVB. Okay. Is TVB more or less than TVA? Price of TVA is $583. If it should be it costs $143 less than TVB. So it's going to be TVB is more, right? It costs $147 less than TVB. So B minus 147 is going to give us the price of TVA, which is $583. It's not the only way to do that, but that is one way to do this. We will add 147 to both sides, plus 147 plus 147. B equals, okay, let's see here, 83 plus 7 is 590. 590 plus 40 is 630. 630 plus 100 is, I believe that's 730. Let me calculate it one more time just to be sure. 3 plus 7 is 10. Okay, so, or you could say 83 plus 7 is 90. 90 plus 40 is 130. So that puts me at 630. 630 plus 100 is 730. Yeah, 730. You can check it out the longer way if you like. Number 26. A dozen games cost $192. How much does one game cost? Okay. So let's say X is the price of one game. Okay. And if 12 of them is $192, 12 times the price of one game is equal to $192. We can calculate the price of one game by dividing by 12. Let me step down to a different step there. 12x, we divide by 12. 192, we divide by 12. Let's do some long division. 12 goes into 19 how many times? One time. 12 multiplied by 1 is 12. 19 minus 12 is 7. Bring down the 2. This is going to be 6. 6. So one game cost $16. There we go. Is that the end? Nope, a couple more. Britt delivers pizza, and she earns an average tip of $3 for each pizza that she delivers. How many pizza must she deliver to earn at least $24 in tips? Always ask yourself when you're defining your variable, what do we not know? Look for the question mark. How many pizzas? So we'll say X represents, we'll use P, all right? So P represents the number of pizzas and you can say delivered, Britt delivers, whatever. I'll say the number of pizza Britt delivers. Okay. So if for every pizza she earns $3, so for one pizza it's 3, for 2 it's 6, for 3 it's 9, etc. So 3P, and she wants to earn at least $24. 3 times P is how much she's going to earn in tips. If it says she wants to earn at least $24, if she earns more than 24, is that okay? Yeah, it is. If she earns exactly 24, is that okay? Yes, it is. So we're going to say the amount of money she earns, 3 times P, is greater than or equal to 24. We're going to divide by 3 on both sides. Do we need to flip our sign? No, we don't. So P is greater than or equal to 24 divided by 3 is 8. So how many pizzas must she deliver and earn at least $24 in tips? At least 8 pizzas. At least 8 pizzas. 28. The band went on a trip to an amusement park. The admission was $25 per band member. If the total price for admission was $325, how many band members went to the park? All right, so what do we not know? What's the question? We'll say B is the number of band members who went to the park. To the amusement park. We'll just say to the park though. Okay, and if it's $25 per band member, so if 1 win is $25, if 2 wins is $50, if 3 wins is $75, 25 times B, they spend a total of $325. 325. We divide by 25 on both sides. Let me actually do that in a separate step. 25B. We divide by 25. 325. We divide by 25. And B is equal to 13. Right? 4 per 100. So 4 for 100. 8 for 200. 12 for 3. And then 1 more. So 13. If you wanted to put that in a sentence, 13 band members went to the park. Oh, it's the last one. The product of a number and 5 is at most negative 175. So X is a number. What does it mean when it says the product? It means we're going to multiply a number, X, and 5 is at most. All right, we'll talk about that. Negative 175. So we're going to be multiplying a number and 5. So 5x, and that is at most negative 175. Solve for the number. So this, the product of a number and 5 is at most, meaning it can be negative 175, but that's as high as it can be. Like if I have at most $10 in my pocket, I don't have 20 in my pocket. I could have 10. I could have 8. I could have 7. But I don't have more than 10. So negative 175, that's as high as it goes. So we're going to divide by 5. Hang on, let me leave it like that, and I'll go to a different step. We're going to divide by 5 on both sides. Do I flip my sign? No, I don't. I'm dividing by a positive number, not a negative number. So let's do some long division. We know this is going to be negative, right? So x is less than or equal to negative. Well, hang on, let's give myself some space to work. 5 goes into 17 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15. We subtract and we get 2. Bring down the 5 and we get 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So x is less than or equal to a negative divided by a positive is a negative 35. There we are. All right, great. Thanks for sticking with me. Hope your test prep goes well, and I'll see you later this week, hopefully. Bye.